Legs front air strut. We're going to disassemble this and put it back together. So just to see how the air strut function and what part it consists of. It is of course more difficult to do it on a used air strut, which have more wear and tear. But the point here is just to have a look inside it. It's quite easy, in fact. You see here the tools I need. Some strips tools, 60mm pipe, some scissors, and O-ring tools. So that's it on a plastic hammer. So it's not a very complicated affair. We use about half an hour with the whole operation. I just filled it with air, so I know there is no leakages on this, of course. And we start with a 10mm wrench to release the air nipple here. Releasing the air. Now it's empty for air. And now we want to open it in the top first to access the nut that holds the shock absorber itself. You see I have a C-ring here with some ears, so it's very easy on the Vigor one to just use some pliers there to take it off. Then the C-ring is loose, but it's not the same on the original one, which I'm going to show now. I only have an original rear one here. You can see there. This is quite easy to loosen. You just bend this one out, and then it will loosen. It's a bit more complicated to put it back on. You can of course replace this with a new C-ring with this, with holes. But you see there. So now back to the Vigor air strut. We have to loosen this. You can just, I would first try just to loosen the cover a bit with a screwdriver. Just bend it a little bit around to release some of the pressure that's in there. It's an O-ring just underneath there. After I've done that, I just take a plastic hammer and knock a little bit on top there. So you see now it bends a little bit. And I just use my hands to wiggle it back and forth to get it. Here we go. And it comes out. You see here, you have the nut there that fasten the shock absorber. And it should be an O-ring here. This is a screwdriver to pull it up. Here it was. Take this one out. Of course you can have a leakage up here, but it's very seldom that you get that. Most leakages are beneath the cuff down at the air strut. Now I'm gonna have to loosen this nut, so 16mm. It's important not to loosen the fork, because I use the fork to put it in a position so I can loosen the nut up here. So I just grab it by the fork and I put it in here. See, I have two holes there. Here, and hold it here, the fork. Then I put a pipe in here. See, maybe there, to loosen it. It's not quite correct there. So, yeah, there it goes. Of course, many ways to do this. But now I can just stretch it there and loosen the screw. On the original one, I used one that cost 150. It will of course sit a bit more than this one. But of course you can use various methods there to use the screw. I loosened it there, so it's okay. So now I'm finally ready to remove the fork. On the Vigor one is that unbroken screw, which is very good. Just use some broken bits. On the original one you have to use a star bits, and it can be really hard to loosen. So you have to use heat or freeze it in air, and lots of lubrication, of course. But for our part here, it's quite easy to loosen. So then I got this off. Put all the parts here so we can have a look at them afterwards. Next we just release the nut holding the shock absorber. What was that? And we see here it's a bit loose already, but of course now I have to release it at the bottom. What we're going to do here first is to remove the cuff. So I use two of these tools just to bend it a little bit apart, and then take the other one. So you see now I have loosened it almost. Take it there. Go. And just keep it there for now on. Then I take a piece of wood here and a plastic hammer, and I have to ensure that the barbs here are out, holding them out, while I'm knocking a little bit lightly around here to release the cover. See, I'm holding it like this, holding the barbs with one hand, and then I knock on the wood piece there with a hammer. If you run into trouble here, just use a screwdriver and try to get in between here, just to release it a little bit. Just in between there, just release it a little bit. That was in fact a bit easier. Just do like that. So now it's quite loose. But I'm going to remove the cuff now first. Holding the cuff on the Vigor one is a metal strip. See, on the original one, they have a plastic strip there. So you have to cut that, of course, and we but just loosen it here with a screwdriver. Just put it in here. Release the metal strips, and now we're going to continue with taking down the cover there. I'm just knocking it on the edges here with this one. It was in fact easier to just use this tool, just bend it down. So now we have released the cover here now, and then what comes up is the outer O-ring here, and we can in fact just release the whole shock absorber. So this is just a cylinder. It's a piston inside. It's and a metal spring, of course. So this is the shock absorber. Of course, this is also exposed to wear and tear. If you have driven 200,000, this has gone up and down some million times, and on some occasions this one also fails, the shock absorbers. Now we're just going to pull up the cuff here. Just take it up like this and over the cover. A little bit of maneuvering there to get it over the edge there, but now it's quite easy. So now it's loose, you see, and we just pull it up. But be careful, you don't want to pull up the cover here, because then you pull out the bellow and it's impossible to get it back in correct. So be sure the cover sits in place. So now the cuff is off, and you can see here how this functions. The air is coming in here, and there's a bellow on the side here. So when the air comes in, it lies in a position that pulls the shock absorber up and down. So in a way you are floating on air. This is what gives you the smooth movements. compared to a traditional shock absorber, so it feels much more comfortable. But many people believe you just ride on an air bellow. That's not correct. Of course you have a shock absorber on these air suspension struts, and this, and of course the bellow which lies beneath there, is exposed to wear and tear as the rest of the air strut. Leakages are for the most part rust, corrosion, it goes in under here. Beneath there you have a stop ring, one stop ring, and two inner O-rings. So if rust is coming inside here, eating its way through the metal beneath the inner O-rings, then you will get a leakage. The stop ring is of course up here. I moved it a little bit down. What we're going to do now is I'm going to take off this aluminium ring so we can see how it works, or how it looks like. So the ideal thing would of course be to use a puller like this. Put it up here. We can have the other end here, but I don't have that available at the moment. These are far too small, so I'm just gonna knock it down with a plastic hammer and knock it down here, and I grease a lot here so we don't destroy the surface too much. Now I greased it a bit with silicone fat, and just knock it down, and when we hit the cover here, the aluminum cover there, just hit everything just off. So I just use a plastic hammer and knock on the aluminium ring there. You have to use some force, but it should be okay. It comes very easily. I can't show you because I only have one hand there, but remember to grease it. It's very important. When the grease is coming inside with the O-rings, you don't destroy them either. You can reuse them in most cases. You see now I reach cover at the bottom, but I just continue and knock a little bit hard, and then that one will be released as well. So just 3-4 knocks there, and it came down. And now they are both down. Let me take a look at it. Lots of grease there now. But you see here, do you see the two inner O-rings? And as I mentioned, it's corrosion beneath those on the cylinder here that leaves a leakage. So what you do if you have a leakage, you dismantle it, as I have done here. Then you have to start fixing the cylinder here. Be aware that it can be deep rust in small places. That's also almost impossible to see, so you have to be very careful and do a solid job, and then you have paint on afterwards. Then we have lots of grease on it, and you knock these together. I'm going to show you how you do that. What I forgot to mention is you have to of course release this stop ring. It's just take a screwdriver, one there and one there, and open it a little bit, and takes it down here. And you have to sand it really good here for rust and everything. Now you see all the parts. It's a very easy construction, a rough mechanical construction consisting of air, shock absorber, bellow, and lots of O-rings and C-rings and stop rings. But it's very easy to take apart. So now we're going to put it together again. Just as I already mentioned, I use lots of grease here. Lithium or silicone grease. So don't be afraid of that. Also on this cover here, I don't want it, because if I have fixed this for rust, I don't want to destroy it again when I put this one on. The two O-rings, inner O-rings and the outer O-ring, can in many cases be reused. You have to take a look at them and make a judgment on that. So then we start. The stop ring I haven't loosened, it's already there. And we start with this, and remember the right way is this, and then you go down there, and then you just knock up here. I have to clean a little bit there. It's just to hammer it a little bit around, then it will come. You see here, now it's on the way down, and we just lightly hammer it into its place. When they have all the grease on, it goes very easy, and we don't destroy the cylinder either. So you see it moving here. Can almost, yes, I can push it by hand, in fact, all the way down to the O-ring. Of course, if this is an original one that has been driven 150,000, 200,000 kilometers, and we have lots of rust there, you have to be really careful when you put paint on and everything, that you do not expand the size of the cylinder, because then you get real trouble to get this one back. So you have to sand it really good, and then put some grounding on and paint on. So then this was in place, so just remove some fat there. Then we take the cover, and it's the same. Lots of grease, just knock it into place. Quite easy. So now the shock absorber is back together. Of course, there are some damages to the cylinder. I would recommend, after we have done that, just to take a brush and paint it a little bit here. So now it's just to put it back together, yes, and we start with a shock absorber. Just have to put it down here, fits in there. Then we go for the cuff, I think. Now we don't, we fasten the cover here to the aluminium ring here first, and then we take the cuff on afterwards. See, everything looks good here. Just turn it. Okay, not that good. I can just twist it again. You can't break anything here, it's very easy. And just take a hammer to knock that down again. Last point was a little wrong, of course, because it's loose under here. I can just put it in like that and knock the aluminium ring carefully down on the cover. So take a hammer and knock on the shock absorber to get it into place in the cover. You see, I used the plastic hammer just to knock down the aluminium ring. Be careful that you don't hit the barbs there. You don't want to destroy anything here. So now it's nice, tight, and in its place. You see the barbs there, correct. When I fill it with air afterwards, everything inside of it push up against the aluminium ring here, so it will sit very tight when you have air in it. So now I take the cuff on. It's easier to take this on and off, so but just take your time, be careful so we don't break it. We don't want to break anything. So now the cuff was in its place again, and we have to fasten it here. I don't use the old metal ring. You can buy these new ones, 500 millimeters. I take the Tesla version and use one of these. I have some strip tools, both for the plastic and the metal there. You can buy that everywhere. So the cuff sit tight and nice there. You can with advantage put some Tech 7 around here, because there are some leakages in here that we don't want. Just take some Tech 7 around here to isolate. And turn the strut, and we just put back on the main screw. So then the main screw was back in. Take the cover here, put on the O-ring, just push it down, knock it a little bit lightly with a hammer. That was it. Then we take the C-ring here and just put that one in place. Then for the case of order, we just put on the fork too. So that was it. Now it's back together, and we of course have to try it with some air. So now we're gonna fill it with air. Take the pressure at 7 bar. So that was it. It's filled up with 7 bar now, and it's tight. In general, I believe the composition of the metal and the shock absorber and the fork is quite good quality. So if you want to buy this Vigor strut, you can just contact teslasuspension.no. Thank you.